discussion. My name is Michael Kennedy, and I welcome you to the Watson Institute for International Studies, where I have the privilege of being its director. Today, we get to welcome back, I never know which title to use for Alfred Gusenbauer. Should I use chancellor? Should I use doctor? Should I use professor? But I think in this context, I should use friend. Alfred Gusenbauer has come back in the brief time I've been here already 3 times, and each time has been a terrific visit, and they all accumulate in powerful ways. But let me talk a little bit more about Alfred Gusenbauer in a little bit, and let me begin with this point. On September 30th, 2009 this year, the Watson Institute had a discussion which might actually be called a prequel to today's event. On that day, both Chancellor Gusenbauer and former Chilean President Ricardo Lagos asked what progressive policies would look like in the wake of this global financial crisis. Now, the Watson Institute is accustomed to raising such questions. After all, we're dedicated to researching the world's immediate and longer-term challenges and figuring how knowledge institutions and networks, and that term I like, which has a Polish accent, how prominenci, might also contribute to figuring those world's challenges. But the Watson Institute has been especially engaged with those known as progressives. What that exactly means across contexts and in this era is in part the subject of today's discussion, as it was back in the end of September. But we do know that when progressives speak, inequality cannot go unacknowledged, dialogue cannot be underestimated, and politics cannot be posed as an obstacle to the good society or the sustainable world. In some ways, we might even say that progressives are ultimately the most pragmatic, especially if anticipating the opportunities and challenges of the future should be a guide to the most important policies we take up now. Of course, that conversation also built on previous meetings at the Watson Institute with other prominent world leaders, including Fernando Cardoso, who actually has an important contribution to studies in comparative international development that we should all take a look at again. But one of the nicest things about the Watson Institute is that these prominenci return regularly. But these prominenci are distinctive. Every politician, of course, must think about the immediate effects of what they say and figure out the short-term strategies that they need to pursue in order to realize their ambitions. But not all politicians think about what it means to be intellectually and institutionally responsible, so that 2030 is not just a distant future, but one that we plan for today. Indeed, that might be one definition, additionally, of being progressive, or being on the left. And that is, how do realistic visions of alternative futures shape action in the present? The Watson Institute is therefore privileged to have a man like Alfred Gusenbauer here. But we're also extremely privileged to have all of you in the room and a colleague like Giampaolo Baiocchi, who will be the discussant for today. Giampaolo is an ethnographer interested in questions of politics and culture, critical social theory, and cities. He's written about and continues to carry on research on actually existing civil societies and participatory democracy, with a lot of his work beginning in Brazil, but thinking about how the innovations and progressive politics in Brazil travel to other places, most notably Chicago, another interesting site for ethnographic research. Giampaolo's last monograph was called Militants and Citizens, an ethnography of popular participation in Porto Alegre, and he has a forthcoming book called Making Spaces for Civil Society, co-authored with Patrick Heller and Marcelo Silva, that also studies participatory arrangements in several pairs of cities in Brazil. His current research focuses on the travel and translation of participatory blueprints and ideas in the current era. So you'll see why he's an especially important commentator on today's work. But Alfred Gusenbauer is the perfect person to initiate this conversation. He certainly has the education for the discussion. He studied law, philosophy, political science, and economy at the University of Vienna, from which he got his PhD in political science. He was Federal Chancellor of the Republic of Austria and a member of the European Council in 2007-08, and he's had many other posts. But he's been especially prominent in the socialist movement. He has been vice president of the Party of European Socialists since 2000 and vice president since 1989 of the Socialist International. More than all of the above, and especially appropriate for this comment, he has led the Next Left focus group, the object of this work, also available on the web. And he's done it not just by himself, of course, with other colleagues, whom he will mention, one of whom I would like to mention in particular, Ania Skrzypek, so that I can enhance my Polish accent. But beyond that, this is not just political action. One of the things that's really impressive about this whole project is that this is a combination of political action and social science research. And so therefore, this becomes the opportunity for us to see not just how parties figure, but how the values associated with the left, solidarity, equality, democracy, and peace, might have a better chance with or without these parties. But I suspect that these parties become the vehicle for Alfred Gusenbauer's influence, but he also goes well beyond them, as you will see. So help me welcome, please, Alfred Gusenbauer back to the Washington School.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, all of you. I intended to retire from politics some time ago and to dedicate my future life mainly to academics and business. But sometimes there occur incidents in history that bring you back in one way or the other to politics. And my experience last year, when I was sitting for the first time after a long time in front of the TV following the results of the European elections. So this was for the first time, because otherwise I would have been in the party headquarters and trying to comment on what is going on and explain why it hadn't been that brilliant. So, but for the first time after, I don't know, 3 decades, I was sitting in front of the TV and I observed the results of the European elections, which for Social Democrats and Socialists have been quite disastrous, as you know. And therefore I thought, as usual, there is the danger that my comrades just say, well, that's again an election that we lost, and we continue as we did. No? We will find some minor issues that we have to correct, and we have to blame some people why things didn't go that well, but in general, I mean, life continues. No? And sometimes you lose elections, and well, next time it will be better, because then you're starting from a lower level, so it might be easier to portray than a great victory if you are winning the one or the other percentage point in the next elections. So knowing them all, I thought that we should undertake a different exercise. And as I'm president of the Karl Renner Institute, which is, let's say, the political Stiftung, foundation of the Social Democrat Party of Austria, and which together with other foundations has a European institution. I thought that I'm going to invite via this European institution all the national foundations to present their analysis of the European elections, mainly along 2 guidelines: what they think are European reasons for that electoral defeat, so reasons that could be generalized, and what have been national specifics, and to bring forward an analysis along those 2 lines, by also involving social scientists in their countries that are collaborating with them. And the response was quite encouraging. So almost all the foundations sent in papers, and we had several gatherings over last autumn discussing the different findings on on the national level, and we compiled the book that Michael was just referring to, where you find all the different analyses concerning the European elections, and we put forward those findings to the Congress of the European Social Democrats that has been held last December in Prague. And I was astonished that the reaction there at the Congress was very positive. And people thought, why are you not going to continue your work and going beyond that? So my intention to end my career as a politician did not last very long, because I was nominated the chairman of this focus group on the next left, and the project of renewing social democracy in Europe. So how far are we, before I'm going into substance, and what is, let's say, the entire scheme of our work? We decided to follow up on the analysis that we presented with 3 roundtables. One on contemporary societies, what has changed. The second on the core values of social democracy. And the third one on the, let's say, economic and social model that social democracy wants to propose in the face of the economic and financial crisis that we are just facing. The first of these roundtables was already done last week on the 16th of March in Brussels. Again, contributions from the different parties, social scientists that are close to the parties, bringing in not the official point of view of the parties, but let's say a critical perspective of what has been done and what should be done. So this is one line of the debate that we are developing over the month. In addition to that, we have, I call it the so-called control group. These are young academics, because we did a call for papers all over Europe, where we invited young academics to join in the debate, and around between 60 and 70 papers were sent in. And we choose the 10 most interesting ones that we published already. And those 10 most interesting people, we now organize as some sort of a parallel group. They met already once in Vienna, and they are going to contribute on an ongoing basis to the different roundtables and to the different debates that are going on, so to get in even some fresher ideas. And in order not to exclude the party leadership of the national parties from our project, we are going to publish a book now in the midst of April. I think will be on the 18th or 19th of April, where we compile the latest programmatic speeches of all the leaders of social democrat parties in Europe. So to have a certain understanding what is state of the art, at least up to now, in the leaderships of the different parties in Europe. So to get a certain understanding how they see the problems and how they want to address them. And there are quite some interesting ones. One that you might have heard about is the speech that Sigmar Gabriel held at the Congress of the German SPD, which was, in my understanding, at least for German circumstances, a landmark speech that tried to address some of the experiences and some of the programmatic challenges that are ahead of us. All those speeches will be compiled in that book that also tries to influence the discussions that we have. And all what we are doing during this spring and at the beginning of autumn then will be compiled in a more comprehensive paper that we are putting in front of the Council of the Socialist Party of Europe by the beginning of December this year, that will be held in Helsinki. So to have, let's say, a more provocative, programmatic orientation to be discussed among the parties. So What we try is to organize a political initiative in very strong cooperation with social scientists, with the intention to influence the political debates on the national and on the European level. Saying on the national level, almost all the foundations of relevant size are now organizing similar debates that we are having on the European level, also on the national level. So the Friedrich Ebert Foundation in Germany, the IDEAS Foundation in Spain, the Dutch Foundation, they are all engaged in that project, so that I have the impression that the stone that I threw in the pond 10 months ago is really creating some effects, and the involvement in that process is a rather broad one. So what are the, let's say, findings or the stage of debate that we are in right now with the colleagues that are working here? One is, of course, what is the problem of, or what has been the problem of social democracy and socialist parties lately? You know that social democrat parties in Europe have been quite split since 1997, since the Malmö Congress, on one eminent issue. This was the so-called third way, a conception that was presented mainly by the British Labour Party together with the German Social Democrats under Gerhard Schröder. There they called it Neue Mitte, which was mainly the attempt to redefine social democrat values under changed conditions of the market economy, and going beyond the traditional conceptions of the welfare state as it was mainly exercised by the Scandinavian social democrat parties, but also by most of the parties in Central Europe. And this concept of the third way was not supported by all the parties. So, I mean, one could say it was a conflict between the traditionalists and the modernizers within the European social democracy. On the other hand, without judging now who was right or wrong, one could say that especially in the face of the economic and financial crisis, people might have gotten the impression that social democrats have been too close to those who have been the protagonists of all this deregulation of financial markets and of goods markets in general, which is constituting a certain problem at the moment. Because one should not neglect the fact that despite all conveniences of modern times, with all the new communication technology, all the conveniences that you can travel without border control in most parts of Europe. So all those things that make life easier for many people, that a certain but substantial part of the traditional electorate of socialist and social democrat parties mainly feel threatened by what is going on in the world right now. So they experience the change that is happening not as a contribution for a more satisfactory life with more possibilities and chances. They experience it more as a threat to what they are accustomed to in their way of life. And this increasing insecurities in a situation where social democracy is mainly seen as the modernizer of the society, which means the protagonist of the change that is going on, is of course creating certain dissatisfactions in part of the electorate. And you will have different political and electoral systems in Europe, but part of the success of especially right-wing, but not only right-wing populist parties is that all those parties went into the vacuum that was left by social democrat parties who followed third way strategies. So they were presumably offering at least a rhetorical security in times of insecurity when social democrats were seen as the protagonists of modernization, by that being the co-creators of the insecurities that people experienced. And I mean, just to give you one example, within the social democrat parties, almost all of them, you have a quite fundamental split of the electorate. So no party is stretched that largely than social democrats, because a vast majority of the social democrat electorate in socially cultural matters is quite conservative or to the right, while in social economic matters is quite to the left. This is what one would understand as the traditional labor electorate of social democrats. And on the other hand, you have parts within social democrat parties who are quite progressive or to the left in social cultural terms, but quite to the right in social economic terms. What do I mean by that? So you have within social democrat parties traditional, let's say, trade unionists who are quite progressive in social policies, but quite conservative concerning migration and issues like that. At the same time, you have intellectuals within social democrat parties who do not care that much about social policies and are in general pro-marketeers, of course with social corrections, but are very liberal concerning migration and, let's say, equal rights for gays and questions like that. So let's say the liberal set of ideas. And this is constituting an enormous tension also within social democrat parties. And there is no party that is stretching larger than the social democrats, which leads to a certain immobility of those parties. Because whenever you're discussing, for instance, migration or the integration of foreign labor, this is mainly an issue that is splitting the social democrat parties. Along those lines, the conservative ones in social cultural terms and the more progressive ones. And this situation led to, I would say, the opening up of a political space for competitors, mainly for populist movements that came into it, because not at any point of the political development social democrat parties were able to reconcile those two big blocks that are existing within them. The second thing is this immobility led also to a loss of hegemony on social and political ideas in the general public debate. Because if you're split within, what then is your political proposal that can make yourself identifiable versus the other political competitors? So very often in the liberal issues, you're very close to liberals and the Greens. Yeah? In the social issues, you might be quite close to more progressive Christian Democrats and even more leftist parties than Social Democrats. So you're losing the ground for a core identification of what a Social Democrat party is standing for. And it's very difficult, therefore, and this is one of the major problems of parties of the left nowadays in Europe, it's very difficult that people could answer the question, what does a Social Democrat party stand for? Due to the different characteristics I just mentioned. The third element is Social Democrats were those that traditionally were very much orientated to the state. The state played a very central role in formulating social democratic policies in terms of redistribution, in terms of offering public goods like education, health, social security, pension, etc., etc. So the state was a main focus of formulating social democrat policies. And as you all know, the importance of the state was reduced by the predominance of the neoliberal ideology throughout the last 15 or 20 years. So the main anchor for social democrat policies was becoming weaker, both in the public perception and also in the ideological debate. Fourth element, which we think is of utmost importance in this context, is also the question of credibility. So to what extent are social democratic parties credible? When they are the collaborators, and I put it bluntly now, the collaborators of neoliberalism in deregulating financial markets, and then want to appear as the social vanguard in their societies. This very often does not go together. And as you know, social democrat parties, more than others, are always held accountable not only in the mirror of their real politics, but of their history, of their ideals. And, well, nobody would say, what you are going to say is not really Christian Democrat, or what you are going to say is not really conservative. But social democrats are often or permanently confronted with the blame, what are you doing that? This is not really social democrat, no? And all the different perceptions of what is a social democratic, of course, are quite flexible, no? Sometimes it's the history, sometimes it's the values, sometimes it is what you portray as your current policies. Therefore, we think that the defeat in the European elections is not a coincidence, but the result of, let's say, a long-term process within the last 15 or 20 years. And this defeat is especially strong on the European level because the position of social democrats concerning Europe also has been quite ambiguous, which means, in general, they are in favor of Europe, but major sectors within the party think that Europe is not really able to replace the welfare state that has been established on the national level. So the best example for that is, for instance, the Swedish Social Democrat Party, that even split publicly on the question of the membership of Sweden into the European Union. And of course, if you are not in favor of the European project, your credibility bringing forward proposals how European policies should look like, how you're going to change the European Union and etc., are of course less credible. So I would assume that the result on the European level is even more disastrous than on the national level, because in addition to all the other reasons that I mentioned, the ambiguity concerning European policies is an additional element. Without going further into the analysis, the question is now along which lines we are trying to get out of that and which project are we trying to develop. There is, of course, a very powerful proposal by our friend Tony Judd, who proposes that social democracy should confess that it is a conservative power that is fighting against the blind optimism of free marketeers and against the Jacobinism, I cite, of the Bushist promoting democracy policy. And he proposes that social democracy should look back to history and just try to conserve the post-war consensus of the welfare state, which means in the years and months to come, where we will have the debate who is going to pay the bill for the bailout of the banks and for the stimulus, etc., etc. So for all these enormously high budget deficits, in terms of that debate, social democracy should strongly advocate the traditional welfare state and try to produce fear and anger and say if they are going to dismantle this welfare state, healthcare is not safe anymore and education and whatsoever. So to use the normally conservative way of propaganda, connecting it with the welfare state, and by that trying to revitalize social democracy. One has to understand that this is a quite powerful proposal and quite appealing to many social democrat parties, because that would imply that the change that has to be undergone in order to re-establish social democrat parties in front of the electorate would be a minor one. And let's say the readiness for change within parties, especially in the social democrat parties, is not very developed. So the proposal of Tony Judd is quite powerful. I think, and this is my personal conviction, that this proposal is not sufficient. And I therefore would propose that we again define a new third way, under inverted commas. A third way that should be a compromise between the traditional social democratic discourse of public services, employment, emancipation, and economic growth, sponsored by the state in one hand, and the new social and cultural imagination coming out of the reactions of the civil society to the environmental crisis, to the global crisis of capitalism, and the existential crisis of sense. So my proposal is not to exclude from the very beginning what we might see and experience on the different levels of society as a reaction to what is going on right now in the world, and especially in Europe. This is a matter of discussion, of course, but it's, let's say, my personal idea in that context. Because I think the problems that we have to address are on different levels. It's a question of the ideological and the political conception. It's a question of our relationship to Europe. And it's also a question of democracy and communication. What do I mean by that? If one accepts my proposal about the new third way under inverted commas, this is mainly a political proposal with a strong economic implication. The only thing is, I do not think that we are able to re-establish and defend the welfare state on a national level. If you are observing the debate that is now going on in Europe concerning the Eurozone and the imbalances within the Eurozone, and do we bail out the Greeks or not, and which mechanisms are there in the treaties, and do we have to change the treaty or whatsoever, I think this clearly indicates that our economic reality is much more interlinked than the instruments that are available in order to address the problems. And therefore, I think one conclusion out of what I said first is that if we are talking about the welfare state, we should talk about the re-establishment of a welfare state on a European basis. This is the first conclusion I would take. The second is a change also has to happen in my understanding concerning the presentation of the Social Democrat parties. As I see it, you do not only have this split within that I just mentioned, but you have an enormous gap between the leading forces in the Social Democrat Party and the so-called basis of the Social Democrat Party. The leading forces in the Social Democrat Party, they belong to the global class. These are normally businessmen, these are intellectuals, these are journalists, these are artists, all those people who benefit mainly from the conveniences of globalization. And they are living in a completely different world than those that they should represent, which are not only the traditional industrial workers, because of course the so-called core electorate of social democracy has fundamentally changed, but also they live completely remote from the reality of the teacher in the village and the nurse and let's say the industrial worker and the guy that is working in a small bank in the financial industry or whatsoever. So this enormous discrepancy, I think, has to be bridged, because exactly the gap between, let's say, the top and the bottom might create a political space that is very easily to be exploited by different parties, especially by the populist ones. And therefore, I think that without leaving a level of knowledge and insight, one has to understand that social democrat leadership also culturally has to reconnect with the social democratic base. I think this is of utmost importance also to gain credibility again, because otherwise there always exists the problem that you are appearing as too much elitist in the eyes of those that you should represent. The third consequence is our relationship with the state. As we all know, there are different possible definitions of the state, and I think that a conservative understanding of the state will not help. I always thought, and I keep that conviction, that the definition of a developmental state, as it is mainly characterized by the Scandinavian countries, is the one that is mostly adequate to social democrat ideas, because it's very much interlinked not only with offering securities, but at the same time demanding the fulfillment of duties and offering possibilities for the individual and for the collective forthcoming. And I think we have to be very clear about that. Social democrats very often are in danger to enter a trap. And the trap is the following. We are in favor of the welfare state, which means, for some social democrats, that we are offering transfers to all who need it. But this very often brings us in contradiction to parts of our own electorate who say, why are those that are not ready to work or to do anything are getting their transfers for free, while I have to work 38 or 40 hours a week in order to receive my salary? And therefore we have to understand, the more comprehensive a welfare state is, the tougher have to be the regulations that have to be fulfilled. Because the more comprehensive the welfare state is, you have to make this welfare state safe against abuse or misuse. Otherwise, you're losing the democratic legitimacy for the welfare state. And therefore, I think we have to reinvent the balance of rights and duties when defining the stretch of the welfare state into our societies. The fifth point is, how should the parties in future look like? Because one of the main problems of social democrat parties is communication. So the traditional model is people are gathering in their local groups, and then an enlightened one is coming and explaining what is the proposal of the party concerning the one or the other issue. The problem is those gatherings might happen once a week, once a month, but in modern communication societies with not only newspapers and TV and internet and Facebook and Twitters, till the meeting of a party where all the ones are gathering around an enlightened who is able to explain everything, normally people have already made up their mind. They already have their opinion. And they already think they know what is right and wrong. So the main problem is to change the communication channels and the way parties are working internally. Without embracing the modern ways of communication, and I can tell you Social Democrat parties are among the most conservative ones what concerns the use of modern communication tools, without embracing those tools as an element also of the internal communication and of the possibility to formulate a social democrat point of view of what is going on, you're always running behind and you are more the victim of a process of public communication than a real actor in that process. And the sixth and last point, at least for the sake of this brief presentation, is I want to cite one of my great colleagues, René Cuperus from the Netherlands, who wrote a very nice sentence at the end of his presentation that you can find on the internet, when he said, European social democrats are paralyzed by blues. In order to revitalize social democracy, we should try to get back soul into our movement. So let's just change the music record. And I think there is a deep wisdom in that too. Thank you very much.
I was going to rail against authority. I can't quite do it from the podium. So thank you, Michael, and thank you, Chancellor Gusenbauer, for the opportunity to debate this. I had a great time reading this book and thinking about it and doing internet research over the last couple of days. European social democracy is not normally in the scope of things I think about too much, but it's been very fruitful and interesting. I edited a book on the Brazilian Workers' Party in 2003, and I've been somewhat involved in this debate about the new and the old left in Latin America. So that is going to be my point of reference. And I had this very funny feeling when I was reading this Next Left book. And the funny feeling was that if I closed my eyes, or if I pretended that, if I ignored the word social democracy throughout the book, much of the debate is very similar to the debate in the Latin American left today, in the so-called pink tide, right? Uruguay, Brazil, Bolivia, Ecuador, Paraguay, maybe Venezuela, Argentina, and Chile. In other words, the debate about responsible policies, the regulation of markets, capital controls, in Latin America, debt repayment, finding a compromised position between economic growth and dignified living conditions, what it means to be an internationalist and the leftist in these days, the issue of identity crisis. Of course, for the Latin American left, or this left that I cited, they do third way policies, but they would run away from the label third way as fast as possible. This is part of the identity crisis today. They have a complicated relationship to the welfare state. The welfare state in many of these countries was installed by military regimes, and pro-democracy forces have sometimes fought against those guarantees. In Latin America, they have a complicated relationship to populist forces. So in all those ways, I thought, okay, this could be a debate about the state of the left in Latin America today. Then there are some things in the Latin American debate which were not present in this volume. And to foreshadow, I'll tell you what I think they are, and then I'm going to ask you where are they? What happened to them in the context of the European social democratic movement? And of course, it goes without saying that I personally have the opportunity to debate this. I think European social democracy is globally very important. I hope it stays around for a long time. I hope it renews and reimagines itself, and I hope you guys keep having a welfare state, because if you don't, then it's very dire for everyone else. Okay, so the three things that I in the Latin American debate, or the debate about the self-identity of the left, that I did not see. One is the issue of a participatory democracy. Central to the electoral success of many of these political parties in countries that I mentioned, and central to their platform, and central to the self-image, is this idea of popular decision-making over policy. In other words, the Brazil Workers' Party, which in many ways looks like a social democratic party in terms of economic fiscal policies, has as its founding principle the idea that this is a party where social movements could speak, and this is a party where, and when it's been in power from local government to national government, has at least made the gesture to turning over to the popular mandate a variety of policy decisions. Central to people's understanding of the success in the left in Latin America today has been the renewal in these parties, the renewal in the electorate that has come about from drawing otherwise unengaged citizens to be participants in government. A second thing I didn't see in the book. I saw in your comments and I saw in your introduction to the volume that the relationship to social movements, renewing that relationship was very, very important. This didn't seem to feature very prominently in the interventions throughout the book. In the context of Latin America, again, these were parties that were social movement parties that got elected to power. And the question of the relationships of movement to elected officials has become a pressing political issue. It's not a trivial one. If you think of autonomy as something other than no relationship, what should be the relationship of these movements to these political parties, especially as these political parties are forced to make choices that movements should oppose? I'm part of a project now where we're tracing Brazil's main social movements over the last 8 years of Workers' Party government, and you find a variety of relationships, a variety of strategic kind of games. The landless movement in Brazil sometimes supports the Workers' Party, sometimes doesn't. But anyways, it's something people think about when they think about what is the left and what is the next left in Latin America. A third one. When people talk about the renewal of socialism in socialist parties in Latin America, we talk about now of the emergence of new political identities or the emergence of old identities within this discourse. For example, in Paraguay now, when the president who was elected gave his inaugural speech in Guarani, a native language. Evo Morales talks about indigenous rights and recognition. There's talk of the empowerment of black movements under these administrations for a long time. People actually talk about, when they think about the left, about turning over 500 years of white supremacy in the continent. These constituencies haven't traditionally been part of the left. Very much the traditional electorate of the left that you were mentioning before, the image one has of a blue-collar, socially conservative trade unionist, was very much how people thought of the left base for a long time. There are now ways people think about integrating these new subjects. Okay, so my three questions to you. One, where is participatory democracy in the debate of the renewal of social democracy in Europe? And I have to mention something kind of funny here, which is the Frederick Ebert Foundation, Social Democratic Institute, has funded a lot of the research and work and directly subsidized a lot of participatory democracy throughout Latin America. One wonders how this plays out in the debate about social democracy itself. And it's not that there isn't social participatory democracy throughout Europe. For example, in Spain now you have participatory budgets, citizen consultations, all manner of things. And when you talk to the reformers who are instituting these, at least some of them, they will tell you that the Socialist Party has been hesitant to embrace some of these. They say, look, they have a sort of technocratic orientation, and you have to bring them along kicking and screaming. I don't know if this is correct or this is true of Spain only, but it is something I wondered about when I read the volume. Second, the question about the movement. I'm thinking of the research that Donatella Della Porta has done about the ultra-globalization movements in Europe, and she has done a kind of values survey. What are the values that the so-called anti-globalization movements believe in? And 9 out of the 10 values she identifies are the ones in the next left book. People believe in solidarity, equality, peace, dignified living conditions. What is the state of debate of integrating or connecting with these emergent creative forces? Some European critics talk about post-politics in Europe and a distancing or a separation between technocratic visions of democracy and movement democracy. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on that. And finally, on the question of new identities, where are the new Europeans in the debate? I saw interventions that talked about immigration as a policy problem, but I wondered where the immigrants themselves as political subjects could come to feature in a renewed and reimagined social democratic vision. So where is the democracy in the social democracy and its renewal? Thank you.